Hey digital warrior, close your eyes now, let the noise fade. The world has asked much of you today. So many thoughts, so many pulls on your energy. But now, here, you are safe, you are still, you are exactly where you're meant to be. Let your breath settle into something soft. Now, picture an ancient garden. Stone paths wind through olive trees. A fountain murmurs quietly in the corner. In this place, time slows. It forgets its urgency. And so do you. This is not a story about how to stay young in the way the world means it. Not about creams or diets, or the illusion of eternal youth. This is a story about a different kind of youth. The youth of a mind that stays open, curious, light. In the teachings of the Stoics, we find not the denial of aging, but the embrace of it. The deep trust that as the body weathers and the years unfold, the soul can stay supple, the heart can remain still, and the mind, oh, the mind can bloom like spring again and again. You will walk beside three voices from long ago. One is a philosopher emperor, burdened by empire, yet faithful to morning silence. One is a Spanish-born dramatist, full of fire, wrestling with power and peace. And one is a former slave, whose words still break chains in unseen hearts. Together they will whisper reminders, not rules, not tricks, but gentle truths to carry with you. They will not ask you to be perfect, only present. So breathe once more. Feel the weight of the day slide from your shoulders. The story begins now, not to teach or impress, but to remind that a young mind is not one that resists time, but one that moves with it. That stillness is not an absence of motion, but a return. And that you, digital warrior, are more timeless than you know. Let us begin. Before the sun crests over Rome's red clay rooftops, before the marble halls echo with footsteps and orders, the garden is alive in its own soft way. Olive leaves tremble gently in the breeze. A bird calls once from the cypress tree. A fountain hums like a whispered chant. This is where Marcus Aurelius begins his day. Not as emperor, not as a ruler of men, but as a student of his own soul. He walks slowly, his sandals brushing the gravel in rhythm with his breath. On one hand, a small wax tablet. In the other, a stylus worn smooth from daily use. He pauses by the edge of the fountain. The water ripples in silence, disturbed only by his shadow. Here, Marcus does not command. He listens, he reflects. Aging has marked his body. There are days when rising from bed aches more than it used to. The mirror reveals silver in his beard and lines around his eyes. But in his thoughts, there is lightness. A kind of youth untouched by time. He breathes in the morning air and lets it settle. Then, in slow strokes, he begins to write. Not a speech, not a declaration, but a simple thought. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It is not a lesson for others. It is a reminder for himself, because even emperors forget. A young mind, Marcus has come to see, is not one free from pain or responsibility. It is a mind that remembers to return to calm, to clarity, to choose. When he was younger, he often chased understanding, tried to grasp it tightly. Now he lets it come gently, like light through leaves. He watches the water ripple again, and thinks of Epictetus. No man steps in the same river twice. The fountain is not the same as yesterday, neither is he, and he no longer resists this truth. This is the beginning of Stoic youth, not in resisting change, but in moving with it. He rises, joints murmuring their protest, and makes his way toward the stone corridor leading back into the palace. There will be decisions today, some small, others heavy. A letter from the frontier, a judgment in the Senate, news perhaps of illness in the provinces. But all of it will wait, because before all of that, there is this moment. And in this moment, Marcus Aurelius is simply a man breathing. Inside the study, light from a small oil lamp casts soft shadows across shelves of scrolls. The scent of old parchment and cedar lingers in the air. Marcus places his tablet on the desk and sits. He recalls something Rusticus once told him when he was a boy. The soul ages not by time, but by forgetting what it is. And so every morning, he remembers. He writes, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This is not optimism, it is practice, a daily act of turning the mind toward what cannot be taken. In the garden, time passed slowly. Here, it begins to quicken. Servants enter quietly, placing scrolls and tea at his table. A physician's report on the sick in the south. A request from a general, a merchant's plea for grain relief. But still, Marcus lingers in silence. Youth, he believes, is found not in speed, but in stillness. Outside the study, Rome begins to stir. Carts rattle over cobblestone. Vendors call to one another. Children chase each other through alleys. The empire breathes in, and Marcus gently prepares to meet it, not with the urgency of fear, but with the calm of purpose. He writes once more, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others when it does not help you. Be simple, be kind, be focused on the task before you." His mind, like his garden, is something he tends daily, prunes when necessary, waters with silence, protects from weeds of distraction and judgment. This tending is what keeps it young, not preserved, but alive, responsive, clear. A servant knocks softly at the door. Marcus closes his journal and nods. The day begins, but something remains behind. An impression, like footprints in sand. This is how a Stoic meets the years, not by denying their passage, but by stepping fully into each one with open hands. Let us walk from this room now, softly, carrying with us the memory of that quiet strength. Far from Rome, in a bright port city, under a Spanish sky, a boy named Lucius Annaeus Seneca looks up at the stars and wonders why people fear growing older. He does not yet know the answer, but he is already beginning to ask the right questions. Let's go meet him. The streets of Cordoba stir with morning light. Clay rooftops glow beneath a slow-burning sun, and the smell of bread drifts from stone ovens along narrow lanes. Here, in the southern province of Hispania, life begins early, and so does curiosity. On a small balcony shaded by grapevines, a boy leans against the railing. His tunic is slightly too big, his sandals worn from running, but in his eyes, there is a gravity far older than his years. Lucius Annaeus Seneca is no ordinary child. He watches the morning unfold below, not with excitement, but with silence. The marketplace is already filling, potters arranging their jars, farmers stacking olives, traders calling prices into the air. But Seneca watches without judgment. He observes. He wonders, why do people rush so? Why do they argue over things they will forget by sunset? Why does everyone fear growing old? His father is a respected man, a rhetorician, skilled in speech, eager to see Lucius follow the same path. But even as a boy, Seneca senses something restless in that world. All the arguing, all the cleverness, it fills the air, but empties the heart. He prefers his mother's presence, calm, gentle, always pausing before she speaks. She teaches by example, with patience, with listening, with grace. She once told him, while brushing the dust from his forehead, wisdom begins when noise becomes quiet. And so, Seneca listens. He listens to the old gardener who hums while pruning fig trees. He listens to the wind that slips through the vineyard like a sigh. He listens to the silence between footsteps when his family walks to the temple. Even as a child, he knows the world has a deeper rhythm than what most hear. In the afternoons, Seneca visits the local library, a quiet stone room beside the baths. The scrolls are stacked high, and the air smells of dry parchment and old olive oil. While other boys race through the courtyard, Seneca sinks into ancient thoughts. He finds Heraclitus first, then Socrates, then Zeno, the quiet founder of Stoicism, who taught not in lecture halls, but in the painted porch of Athens. Zeno said, "Man conquers the world by conquering himself." Seneca doesn't fully understand it yet, but something in the words settles into his bones like warm sun. He watches people every day. His neighbors, his father's guests, the merchants in the plaza, and wonders why they seem so shaken by small things. A delay, an insult, a lost coin. It doesn't make sense to him. He writes quietly in a small notebook. Why do we fear time when it is all we are given? It's not meant to be profound. It's just his way of asking what it means to grow old, to grow wise, to grow free. One evening, a family friend visits, an old Roman senator with a voice like gravel and eyes that always seem tired. He speaks of politics, of ambition, of who's rising and who's falling in the Senate. But Seneca is not impressed. After the man leaves, Seneca asks his father, "Why do grown men speak as if they're still proving themselves?" His father laughs, "Because some men never stop needing applause." Seneca nods. He decides then he would rather earn silence than applause. Because silence, he is learning, means you've made peace. Years pass. Seneca grows taller, his voice deeper, his questions sharper. But one thing never changes. He keeps watching. He sees how people cling to youth, how they speak of old age as a burden, as if it were a disease, not a chapter. He begins to believe that most people do not fear age. They fear reflection, because aging slows you down. And when you slow down, you start to hear yourself more clearly. Seneca wonders, what would happen if we welcomed that slowness instead of fearing it? One spring morning, as the hills bloom with wild lavender and the air buzzes with bees, Seneca walks with his uncle to a small vineyard outside the city. They talk of philosophy, of duty, of the soul. His uncle says something that stays with him forever. "Your body will change, Lucius. Your fortune will rise and fall. But if your mind is your own, nothing can truly age you." Seneca stops walking. He looks at the vineyard, each vine bending under the weight of new fruit. He realizes something. The vine does not fight the season. It bends, it bears, it lets go. That night, he writes, "It is not that life is short, but that we waste so much of it." And from that moment on, he vows to waste as little as possible. He studies longer, read deeper, learn to fast, to meditate, to speak less, and observe more. While others chase prestige, he begins crafting the soul. And through it all, his mind stays light, not because it avoids sorrow, but because it holds sorrow gently. He sees that youth is not lost in years. It is lost in distraction, in bitterness, in forgetting who you are when no one is watching. Seneca promises himself, "I will not forget." As the stars rise over Corduba, he sits once more on the same vine-covered balcony from his childhood. The city has changed, he has changed, But the sky is still the same, wide, silent, ancient. He breathes in deeply. The night feels long and full of questions, but he is ready, because the questions no longer frighten him. They guide him, and far away, across the sea, in a Roman province torn by war and hardship, a man named Epictetus is about to begin a journey, not of body, but of spirit. He will know chains, but he will never know a captive mind. Let's walk toward him next. The winds off the Ionian Sea are sharp in winter. They sweep through the coastal town of Hierapolis with a bite that chills even the strongest bones. In a small stone house, dark and unadorned, a boy awakens to another morning of orders barked, buckets carried, lashes threatened. He is a slave. His name is Epictetus. His body belongs to someone else. His labor, his time, even his voice must answer to another. But there is one place untouched. His mind. From his earliest memories, Epictetus sensed a boundary within him that could not be crossed. Masters could bind his hands, could strike his legs, but they could not make him believe their cruelty was truth. Each morning, before his chores begin, he sits in the courtyard's cold dirt and watches the clouds pass overhead. The sky is the same one the free men walk beneath. And in this shared sky, Epictetus finds something that can never be taken: perspective. His master is a wealthy Roman with little patience and sharp temper. One morning, in a fit of fury, he twists Epictetus's leg until it breaks. The boy does not scream. He does not beg. He only says, calmly, "You're going to break it." And when the bone snaps, he says softly, "I told you so." From that day forward, he walks with a limp, but he walks with his head high, because he knows now with certainty the body can suffer, but the soul does not have to. In time, he is sent to Rome to serve in a house where philosophy is discussed in hushed corners. Great names are spoken here: Socrates, Zeno, Musonius. Epictetus listens while sweeping the floors. He memorizes lines, not from scrolls, but from whispers. Eventually, Musonius Rufus, a Stoic teacher of stern demeanor and luminous insight, notices the quiet boy who lingers at doorways with curious eyes. He offers him a chance, not freedom, not fortune, but knowledge. Epictetus accepts without hesitation. He learns by watching, by questioning, by practicing restraint in a world full of indulgence. While others debate, he contemplates. While others lecture, he listens. What he discovers is simple, yet profound. The essence of freedom is self-command. And no one, not Caesar, not fate, not pain, can take that from him. Years pass. He is eventually granted his freedom, not by request, but by quiet inevitability. Those who knew him as a servant now bow their heads when he speaks. He begins to teach, not from marble steps or golden scrolls, but from a small room filled with those hungry for something deeper than ambition. He tells them, "You are not your body. You are not your reputation. You are the keeper of your own thoughts. Guard them well." And people listen, not because he demands it, but because he has lived it. His limp is more pronounced now, but his steps are sure. He walks slowly, never in haste, as though each footfall deserves its own full breath. He carries no bitterness, no pride, just a deep, abiding calm. To the young students who ask him how to become wise, he says, "First, learn to want less." And when they ask how to grow old without fear, he smiles. "Practice dying every day," he says, "not with sorrow, but with grace. Each moment passed is a small death. Accept it gladly. Then you'll find peace long before the final hour." Epictetus is poor by Roman standards. His robe is patched, his meals are plain, his house is modest, but he is richer than kings in the only currency that matters: a mind free from disturbance, a heart unmoved by praise or insult, a spirit anchored to truth. He once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is not controlled in the harsh sense. It is not rigid. It is clear to know what is yours and what is not, to care deeply about virtue and lightly about everything else. This is how the Stoic mind stays young, by refusing to carry what does not belong inside. In his final years, Epictetus teaches fewer students. He speaks slower now, but his words cut deeper. A student once asked him if it's possible to be happy even in pain. Epictetus closed his eyes and answered, "Happiness is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of purpose." He points to the fireplace. The wood inside is crackling, consumed. That wood was born to burn. Are you not born to live with courage? He dies as he lived, quietly, without fear, surrounded by those who loved him, not for his power, but for his peace. And long after his voice fades, his words remain, passed down, not as commands, but as gentle invitations. They whisper through time. You are not your wounds, you are not your past, you are what you choose to become. Let us carry this stillness now, as we rise from Epictetus's humble home. Feel how the world around us grows quieter, not because it has changed, but because we have. For in the imperial chambers of Rome, Marcus Aurelius will soon face his final days, and with every breath, he clings to nothing, because he has learned, as the Stoics all have, that the greatest youth is the one that forgets to fear age. Let us walk there next. The northern winds press cold against the borders of the empire. In the military outpost of Vindobona, what will one day be Vienna? The air smells of pine and iron. The tents tremble in the wind. Campfires flicker low, and in a simple room near the edge of the Roman camp, Marcus Aurelius lies still beneath thick woolen blankets. The emperor is dying. His breaths are shallow but steady. His beard is longer now, streaked fully with white. His skin has grown thin, yet in his eyes, when they open, there is no fear, only a strange and tender clarity. Outside, the Danube flows silently, cutting through the wintry earth. Soldiers walk in a practiced rhythm, their armor clinking softly as they pass. They know their commander is fading, but they also know he is ready. Marcus does not ask for healers or incense or final comforts. He asks only for his journal, the same one he carried in his younger days, its cover worn, its corners curled like old leaves. He rests it gently across his lap and opens to a blank page. His hand is weaker than before. The stylus trembles slightly as he writes. Soon you will be ashes or bones, a name perhaps, but what matters is how you used your soul. He pauses, listens to the wind outside, feels the pain in his chest, but does not resist it. He knows the Stoic lesson deeply now, that death is not an end, but a part of nature's rhythm, as normal as dusk, as necessary as breath. He thinks back to the long mornings in his Roman garden, the fountain, the birds, the stillness. He remembers the faces of those he loved and lost, his wife, his children, his teachers. He remembers not with sadness, but with gratitude. Each one, he knows, was a visitor, a flame that warmed his life for a time. And now, like him, they have returned to the earth. He writes again, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This is not morbid, it is freeing. The Stoic mind does not waste time trying to hold what will pass. It opens its hands, it gives thanks, and it lets go. There is a knock at the door. His general enters, a loyal man with eyes full of concern. He bows, but Marcus lifts a hand gently, dismissing the ceremony. "Is it time?" the general asks. Marcus smiles faintly. "Time has always been here," he replies. The general hesitates. "Shall I summon your son?" Marcus considers this. Then he shakes his head. "Let him lead without this burden. Let him remember me by how I lived, not by how I died." The general bows once more and leaves. Marcus turns back to his journal. He writes, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, but we must do both." His breath catches, but he does not clutch his chest. He lets the wave move through him like passing thunder. He remembers a time as a young man, sitting beside his mother, watching a candle burn low. She told him then, when the flame goes out, it does not scream. It simply gives back what it borrowed. And so Marcus intends to do the same. No fear, no clinging, just a quiet return. A servant enters with warm water and cloth. Marcus washes his face slowly, savoring the small comfort. Even now he honors the moment. Even now he chooses dignity. He thinks of Epictetus, whose words once guided him through nights of doubt. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about those things. Marcus smiles. Even death is only a thought, until we decide what it means. He writes again, his final line for the morning: "Live not as though you had 10,000 years. Fate hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." He sets the stylus down. The oil lamp beside him flickers once, then steadies. His breath is slow. His eyes drift to the ceiling beams, where morning light sneaks through. He does not pray for more time. He does not wish for second chances. He only rests fully present with the life he has lived. This is the Stoic youth, not the absence of age, but the absence of regret. To know you walked gently, spoke truthfully, loved fully. To have lived aligned with nature, not resisting, not grasping, but flowing with the seasons of your soul. This is the reward of a clear mind. When the final breath arrives, it feels not like a theft, but like a homecoming. And so Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, lets his eyes close. No curtain falls, no trumpet sounds, only the wind continues. And in Rome, far away, his journal waits on a table in a quiet garden. A page marked only with a faint fingerprint. Let us leave him now, not with sorrow, but with respect, for we have one more figure to visit. In a quiet study beneath candlelight, an older Seneca prepares to write his final letter. Not to history, not to the Senate, but to a dear friend. In it he will reveal the final gift of Stoicism. Not how to avoid death, but how to live so fully that when it comes, there is nothing left to fear. Let's step into that room next. A single candle flickers against the stone walls of a quiet study in Rome. The shadows it casts stretch gently across scrolls, wax seals, and a half-full cup of warm fig wine. The city outside is hushed, twilight settling into alleyways, footsteps fading down marble steps. Lucius Annalius Seneca sits at his desk, cloaked in a plain robe, his hands folded in thought. His hair is grey now, and his body is lean, but his presence is calm and steady. His face carries the softness of one who has stopped resisting time. On the table before him lies an open scroll. He dips his pen in ink, breathes deeply, and begins to write. My dear Lucilius, let us prepare our souls not for death, but for life. A life so clear, so full, that death cannot diminish it. He writes not with fear, but with presence. This is not a farewell, it is an offering. a letter to a friend, but also, perhaps, a whisper to anyone listening with their soul. Seneca has lived through court intrigues, wealth, exile, the return to power, and now, a quiet watchfulness as politics turn sharp again. He has seen ambitions rise and fall, has been praised as wise and condemned as opportunist. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight is about what remains after the noise, the kind of life that leaves no bitterness behind. He dips the pen again. We are not given short lives, my friend. We make them so. Life is long enough, if we know how to use it. The words come gently, like rain on olive leaves. He does not regret his years. He does not long to be young again. In truth, he feels younger now than he did at 30, less consumed by appearances, less bound by other people's expectations. He smiles softly. A young mind, he now sees, is not one free from sorrow. It is one that carries sorrow without hardening. The door to his study opens quietly. A servant brings in a small bowl of olives, bread, and honey. Seneca nods with gratitude, but doesn't speak. The boy sets the food down and disappears again into the gentle hush of the house. Seneca takes a single olive, eats slowly, and writes on. Let us live each day as if it were a full life, not rushing to the end, but meeting it with kindness and attention. He recalls something he wrote in his youth. It is not that life is short, but that we waste so much of it. And now, near the edge of his own life, that truth is deeper than ever. Wasting time, he knows, doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what doesn't nourish the soul. Chasing reputation, resisting reality, fearing what cannot be stopped. These he has unlearned. What remains is what matters. He writes, even the final hour is not to be feared. If the mind has lived freely, then death is merely the closing of a well-loved book. The candle flickers, a breeze slips in through the window and carries the smell of laurel and warm dust. Seneca's mind drifts, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. He thinks of the boy he once was, gazing up at the Spanish sky, asking why people fear age. He wishes he could whisper to that boy, you will grow older, but you will also grow lighter, and that will be worth everything. He takes another breath, deep and measured. The room is quiet. The scroll is half filled. He writes, we spend so much of life preparing for life, and when it finally arrives, we do not know how to receive it. A soft knock interrupts him. It is his wife, Paulina. She enters the study slowly, holding a shawl around her shoulders. Her eyes search his, not with panic, but with presence. They've spoken little of death in recent days, though they both know Nero's patience grows thin. She asks, will you write again tomorrow? Seneca smiles. If I wake, he says, I will write. And if I do not, this will be enough. She takes his hand. They sit in silence. The candle burns low. Later that night, when Paulina has returned to bed, Seneca rolls up the scroll and seals it. He places it gently beside the others, hundreds of letters written to Lucilius, to himself, to time itself. His writings were never meant to impress. They were meant to anchor, to remind him, and perhaps all of us, that the good life is not measured by how long we live, but how deeply we notice. He blows out the candle. Darkness settles gently, like a soft wool blanket over the city. And though his body is old, his mind remains light, curious, quiet, and clear. Because Seneca has lived by the principle that defines Stoic youthfulness, to treat every breath as enough. Let us rise now from this quiet study. Step softly through the hallways, where echoes of wisdom still linger in the stone. Feel how time has slowed. Not because the story has ended, but because we have entered the still center of it. Far from the writings and marble of Rome, in a grove of whispering pines, young students gather around a teacher's voice. They do not yet know his name, will echo for centuries, but they listen as if every word might change the course of their own hearts. That teacher's name is Epictetus, and the lesson he offers next is not about dying, it is about beginning again. Let's walk quietly toward him. The pine grove is hushed, the breeze whispering through branches like an old friend sharing secrets. Beneath the soft canopy of green, a circle of young men sits cross-legged on the earth. They wear simple robes, their hair tied back, eyes focused. In the center, seated on a flat stone worn smooth by years of use, is an older man with a limp, Epictetus. His face is lined, his beard white and trimmed close. His tunic is faded, patched in places, but his posture is steady. He speaks not loudly, but clearly, like someone who knows the weight of every word. He does not hold a scroll. He does not pace or gesture theatrically. He simply looks at each student as though they are the only person in the world. And today he speaks of something few people understand: how to begin again. Let us suppose, he says softly, you've made mistakes. Let us suppose you've wasted years, wandered from your path, or grown bitter with time. He pauses. The wind lifts a few dry needles from the ground and carries them into the sunlight. So what? He says. The students glance at one another. Does a tree mourn the leaves it shed last autumn? Does it curse the frost, or regret the sun that scorched it months before? He smiles. No, it simply grows again. This is not some cheerful metaphor to lift spirits. Epictetus speaks from experience. He remembers the cold Roman floor where he once slept as a slave. He remembers the pain in his leg that never fully healed. He remembers the bitter thoughts that used to rise like smoke in his chest. Why me? Why this? But in time he learned that the more he clung to the past, the more it owned him. So he let it go, not by forgetting it, but by forgiving it. And that, he tells his students, is the path to renewal. To begin again, he says, is not to return to what was. It is to begin where you are, with nothing hidden, nothing denied. He stands slowly, leaning on a wooden staff, and walks to a small pool nearby. The students follow. He kneels, scoops a handful of water, and lets it fall between his fingers. This water does not ask where it came from. It does not ask where it will go. It simply flows. He turns. Can you do the same? Many of the students have come to him seeking strength. Some are fleeing failure. Others are haunted by choices they can no longer change. One of them, a boy no older than 20, asks, but what if I have disappointed those I love? Epictetus nods. You will, and you will be disappointed too. That is the nature of love among imperfect souls. He points to the trees. They bend, they lose branches, they are struck by lightning, but still they grow toward the light. To begin again, Epictetus teaches, you must give up the story that says you are broken. You are not broken. You are unfolding. You are not too late. You are exactly on time. What ages the mind is not experience. It is the refusal to learn from it. And what keeps it young is not novelty, but the courage to try again. He invites the students to sit beside him. Let us practice, he says, as if today were the first day of your life. And the last. A hush falls over the grove. Each student closes his eyes, and in that silence, something shifts, not loud or dramatic, but deep and quiet. a sense of permission to forgive, to reset, to walk forward without dragging the past like a chain. Epictetus speaks once more: "You do not control the wind, the rain, or the years that pass, but you control your thoughts, your choices, your focus." And with that, he is done for the day. The students remain seated long after he walks away, not because they have been dazzled, but because they have been reminded of something they forgot: that the mind can renew itself at any time, that softness is not a weakness, and that there is no shame in beginning again. Far away, in the quiet cell of a monastery, a Stoic scholar copies these lessons onto a fresh scroll. He does not know your name, but he knows your heart. He writes, "The soul remains untouched by time, unless we teach it to age." Let us carry that line with us now, as we walk gently into the final days of Seneca's life, not to mourn him, but to witness the grace of letting go. A grace that makes the final chapter not an ending, but a kind of sunrise. Let's go there now. The villa is quiet in the early light. Stone walls glow amber with the warmth of dawn, and outside, the garden rustles gently beneath the sway of cypress trees. A soft breeze lifts the edge of a linen curtain, and the world feels suspended, caught in the stillness between night and day. Seneca rises slowly. His joints ache more than usual, but he greets the pain not as an enemy, but as a familiar visitor. He dresses simply, no rings, no symbols of status, just wool robes and sandals softened by years of wear. Today is not an ordinary day. It may be his last. He walks to the inner courtyard, where light pools on the stone floor like liquid gold. A fountain murmurs beside him, its rhythm steady, unchanged for decades. Seneca listens to it, as he always does, before lifting a scroll from the small bench nearby. Not one of his writings, but Epictetus's words, copied carefully by one of his students. He reads the line silently: "When the time comes, let it come. Greet it like an old friend who stayed away too long." He closes his eyes, lets the words settle. There is no fear in his chest, no sorrow in his hands, just a deep and gentle awareness. It is not death itself that moves him this morning. It is the grace of release. He has lived fully. He has known wealth, exile, power, and disgrace. He has written words to comfort the lost, and letters to strengthen the weak. He has lost friends. He has forgiven enemies, and most of all, he has returned, again and again, to himself. This is what Stoicism taught him, that you can meet anything, with poise. And when the last moment comes, you don't cling, you bow. Paulina joins him in the courtyard. Her presence is as steady as always, a light that never dimmed even through hardship. She does not weep, she does not tremble, she only reaches for his hand. He holds it without speaking. They sit together, their fingers interlaced, watching the day unfold. Birdsong, the clatter of a distant cart, the whisper of water over stone. And in this stillness, there is fullness, not the fullness of a crowded life, but the fullness of nothing left unsaid. Seneca stands once more. He walks to his study, that small haven where words have flowed for years. Letters to Lucilius, essays on anger and mercy, reflections penned by candlelight, while the city roared beyond the walls. On his desk lies one final scroll. He unrolls it and writes just a few lines. Death is not the extinguishing of light. It is only the lamp being passed on. He seals it with warm wax, presses his ring gently into the surface, and places it beside the others. Not a conclusion, a continuation. As the sun climbs higher, visitors begin to arrive. messengers, witnesses, those summoned by the emperor to oversee what must be done. Nero's will is law, but Seneca's choice is his own. He welcomes them all with calm. He offers them wine. He speaks kindly. He assures them there is no resentment. What matters, he says, is how one departs, not when. He chooses the simplest method. He bathes. He eats a final meal, just bread, olives, and warm water. And then he opens his arms, not in resistance, but in release. This is what the Stoics prepared for, not in dread, but in practice, to live each day as if it were the final rehearsal, so that when the curtain falls, there is no panic in the heart, only peace. The sun spills fully into the courtyard now, illuminating everything, and as Seneca rests on a low bench, he looks once more at Paulina. He smiles, not the smile of farewell, but the smile of someone who knows that letting go is not the opposite of living. It is part of it. In the days that follow, his words will travel, carried by students, passed through generations, and in every phrase is the same quiet truth. The Stoic mind remains young, not because it clings to life, but because it knows how to let life move through it. Let us walk gently away from this moment, back through the villa, past the fountain, through the olive grove that catches the last of the morning light. Let us carry nothing but this, that the most graceful souls are not the ones who never fall, but the ones who fall gently, who rises slowly, who releases fully. Far away now, across the sea and across the years, a young boy walks beside a river. He holds a journal in his hands. His name is unknown, his age unimportant, but in his heart is the spark of a question. Can I live with that kind of calm? Let's go meet him next, for his story is not history, it is yours. A narrow river winds between grassy banks, its surface glinting softly beneath a morning sky. A boy walks beside it, sandals damp from dew, the hem of his robe brushing against wildflowers. He carries a small leather-bound journal, empty but full of promise. His name is not important. He lives in no grand palace, no distant century of scrolls and senators. He could be anywhere. He could be now. What matters is this. He is beginning. The boy pauses beneath a sycamore tree and sits cross-legged in its shade. He opens the journal and holds his stylus over the page. No words come yet, but he is not anxious. He is listening to the birds overhead, to the soft current of the river, to the quieter movement within. Something stirs in him. Not a thought, but a question. How does one live without growing old inside? Not in the body, but in the soul. He remembers a story told to him by an old tutor, about a philosopher emperor who walked in gardens and wrote not to teach, but to remind himself of what mattered. About a man born into slavery who found in his chains a freedom no master could touch. About a playwright who learned in the quiet of his final hour that letting go was not the end, but a return to the beginning. The boy smiles. These were not supermen, not flawless saints, just people who learned how to see clearly. He writes his first words. Today I choose stillness over noise. I choose presence over rush. I choose to see the world not as mine to own, but as mine to walk through, gently. The ink dries quickly in the morning warmth. He breathes. He is young by age. Yes, but that is not what makes his mind young. His youth comes from something deeper. His openness, his willingness to learn without pride, his comfort in silence. A small insect crawls across the edge of the journal. He watches it for a long while. It is slow, unbothered, focused. He understands. There is no need to hurry to wisdom. It does not live at the end of life. It lives in the pause between thoughts. in the grace of a kind word, in the humility of starting again. Across the river, an old man walks with a cane. He nods at the boy, and the boy nods back. They are separated by decades, perhaps more, and yet for a moment, they share something weightless. Neither seeks to impress the other, neither needs to be right. They simply exist, together, under the same wide sky. Later that day, the boy will return home. He will help gather firewood. He will wash, eat, and rest. Life will continue, as it always does. But inside him, something will have shifted. He has begun a practice, not dramatic, not public, but profound. He has chosen the path of the Stoic mind, not because it promises perfection, but because it promises clarity. And in a world that rushes, forgets, clings, and fears, clarity is the rarest kind of youth. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, casting gold across the river's surface, the boy tucks his journal under his arm and begins to walk again. He does not know where the path leads. He only knows this: every step he takes is a chance to return, to begin, to soften, to grow, to let go. And in this quiet, unhurried way, he will remain ageless, not by holding on, but by holding lightly. Let us walk with him now, just for a while longer. Let us match his pace, breathe his rhythm, trust his questions, because in that boy's gentle footsteps, there is a trail you already know, the path home. So now, dear listener, the journey draws to its resting place. We have walked beside emperors and exiles, scholars and students. We lingered in gardens, crossed the silence of courtyards, and watched sunsets through ancient eyes. And through it all, one truth has glowed quietly, like a flame that never burns out. The mind remains young when it returns to what is real. Not real in the noisy, factual sense, but real in the soul's sense, the sense of presence, of stillness, of gratitude. You have seen how Marcus began each morning, not with command but with reflection, how Seneca wrote not to impress, but to remember, how Epictetus, bound in body, was freer than kings. And you have seen that youth is not a moment we lose. It is a way of seeing, a way of moving, a way of meeting each moment as if it is brand new. So if in the quiet of your life, you ever feel the heaviness of time pressing on your shoulders, if you wonder whether you are too late, or too worn, or too far from your path, remember this: you are always one breath away from beginning again. That is the Stoic path. Not to freeze time, but to flow with it. Not to chase youth, but to embody its clarity. Not to fear the end, but to meet it like the final note of a well-played song. May your thoughts be light. May your heart be calm. May your mind stay forever open. You are not aging alone. You are unfolding, and the journey is far from over.